What would you say if police asked you where your child was and you were too drunk to remember? That is not just embarrassing. That is the kind of moment that can turn into DUI charges, child neglect charges, and a case that follows you for years. Hit subscribe right now because what I'm about to show you could keep you from making the worst mistake of your life in the worst moment of your life. Like this video too, because when panic hits, you need simple words you can actually remember. Here's what you're about to learn. First, the one sentence that stops you from talking yourself into deeper trouble. Second, the exact line that protects you when police start fishing through your car, your phone, or your bag. Third, the question that helps you know whether the stop is still about traffic or if it just became a criminal case. And fourth, the moment when you stop trying to explain and ask for a lawyer. Most people have no idea how fast a messy drunk stop turns into a child endangerment investigation. You think the danger is the flashing lights. The real danger is the next 10 words out of your mouth. If you get emotional, defensive, or confused, you can hand police a case before they even finish the stop. That is why this matters to you. Even if you never drink, even if you never face this exact headline, one high-pressure stop can still push you into panic, and panic makes people talk way too much. Now let's talk about the setup, because this is where people blow it. In a case like this, the first issue is obvious. Child safety comes first. If police are trying to locate a child who could be in immediate danger, you do not play games, you do not stall, you do not lie. But once police know the child is safe, the stop changes. It moves from emergency response into investigation. And that is where people sink themselves. You start trying to explain why you drank. You start guessing where the child was. You start telling officers what you think happened, what you maybe remember, what your friend texted you, what your ex said, what your mom might know. Here's the reality. The more you guess, the more damage you do. Police do not hear confusion the way you hear confusion. They hear statements. They hear changes in your story. They hear facts they can test. They hear possible crimes. So your job is simple. Help protect the child if there is a real emergency. Then stop making the criminal side worse with free talking. The first tactic is this. Stop the panic talking before it starts. Here's exactly what you say. Officer, I will comply, but I do not wish to answer questions. Word for word, memorize that line. You need that sentence because high-stress stops make you babble, and in a title like this, alcohol makes that even worse. You think you are helping by talking. You are often just stacking bad facts on top of each other. The officer asks, how much did you drink? You guess. The officer asks, where was your child left? You guess again. The officer asks, did you drive here? Now you start mixing times, places, and half memories. That is how a bad night becomes a criminal file. Bad way. Most drivers say, look, I only had a couple drinks, and my kid was with a friend, I think. Then police hear alcohol, uncertainty, and possible neglect all in one sentence. Good way. Smart drivers say, officer, I will comply, but I do not wish to answer questions. Then the officer gets less free evidence and you stop feeding the fire. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos, and this is the exact point where people lose control. They think if they sound cooperative enough, officers will go easier on them. That is not how it works. Cooperation with lawful orders is good. Volunteering a messy story is dangerous. Those are two different things. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings. In Berkemer v. McCarty, the court made clear that statements during roadside questioning can be used against you later. Plain English, what you say on the side of the road matters a lot. The road is not your therapy session. It is not your chance to talk your way into mercy. It is a place where every confused word can come back later. And let me make this very clear. If a child is in real danger and you know where the child is, getting help to that child comes first. But if the child has already been found safe or police already know where the child is, your next move should not be giving a long emotional speech. Your next move is protecting yourself from becoming the star witness against yourself. Watch what happens when someone keeps talking. They say they left the child with a sitter. Then, they say maybe it was the grandmother. Then they say the child may have been asleep in the car earlier. Then they say they only drove a little. That one stop can create a timeline full of contradictions. And once that happens, the officer no longer sees you as confused. The officer sees you as unreliable and possibly lying. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because it does one powerful thing. It separates lawful compliance from self-destruction. You can hand over your license. You can step out if ordered. You can follow instructions, and you can still refuse to answer investigative questions. Still watching? Good. Drop a like if this is already changing how you think about roadside questions, and tell me in the comments if you think you could stay calm enough to use that line under pressure. The second tactic is the line that protects your car, your purse, your diaper bag, your phone, and every little thing sitting near you. Here's exactly what you say. Officer, I do not consent to any searches. Word for word. Memorize that line. Here's the trick they don't want you knowing. Police do not always need a huge dramatic yes from you. They often just need you to act like yes. You open the passenger door, you hand over the bag, you unlock the phone to clear things up, you point at the back seat, you say, "Go ahead, I've got nothing to hide," and just like that, you may have handed over your strongest legal protection. Bad way. Most drivers say, "Sure, look around, I just want to get this over with," then police search farther than expected and find things you forgot were there. Good way. Smart drivers say, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." Then police have to rely on real legal grounds instead of your panic. This is 100% legal. Refusing consent is not obstruction, it is not disrespect, it is not some magic phrase only lawyers can use. It is a basic protection you already have. If officers have another lawful reason to search, they may still search. Fine, let them carry that burden, do not carry it for them. Let me show you exactly why this matters in a drunk parent case. Maybe your phone has texts showing where you were. Maybe your purse has medicine, mini bottles, or other things that create more questions. Maybe the back seat has open containers. Maybe your child's items are there, which makes the timeline worse if officers are already asking where the child was. If you consent out of panic, you can turn one charge into three. The big case here is Schneckloth v. Bustamonte, plain English. If you voluntarily agree to a search, it becomes much harder to challenge later. That is why your refusal matters. It protects the record. It protects your lawyer's options, and sometimes it stops the search from happening at all. Former police officers have confirmed this works because it changes the tone of the stop. Once you refuse clearly, the officer has to decide whether they truly have legal grounds or whether they were hoping you would just crack and let them dig. And here is something else most people miss: your refusal should be short. No speech, no attitude, no "you are violating my rights" speech on the roadside, just the line, calmly. Then stop. The longer you talk after refusing, the more you start undoing your own protection. Let me show you exactly how easy it is to mess this up. The officer says, "If your child is safe, then you don't mind if I look through your phone and verify that, right?" You feel guilty. You feel scared. You want to look like a good parent, so you say yes. But now the search may go way beyond what you expected. That is why guilt is a terrible legal strategy. The third tactic is the question that tells you whether the stop is still limited or if it just turned into something much bigger. You look at the officer and say this: "Officer, am I free to leave once this traffic matter is complete?" Those exact words, memorize that line. You need that question because traffic stops have a lane, the stop, the documents, the warning or ticket. Then you leave, that is the normal path. But officers often try to stretch that path into a broader investigation. More questions, more waiting, more units, more fishing. And if alcohol and child welfare are part of the story, the pressure gets even bigger. Bad way. Most drivers say, "Are we done yet?" because this is ridiculous. Then the officer hears attitude, slows everything down, and starts watching you even closer. Good way. Smart drivers say, "Officer, am I free to leave once this traffic matter is complete?" Then the officer has to be clear about whether the stop is over or still active. Here's the reality. Timing matters. You do not ask this in the first 5 seconds. You ask it when the normal traffic business should be wrapping up or when it becomes obvious the stop is drifting into unrelated questioning. That question does not magically end the stop, but it forces clarity. If the officer says yes, you leave. If the officer says no, now everyone knows you are being held longer and there should be a reason. The case here is Rodriguez v. United States. Plain English. Police cannot stretch a traffic stop longer than needed just to go fishing unless they have more legal reason that matters to you, because a stop can start with a simple lane violation and then turn into 20 extra minutes of questions about drinking, parenting, and where you were earlier in the day. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection when officers try to blur the line between a traffic stop and a criminal interview. You do not argue. You do not debate the law on the roadside. You ask the clean question and make them answer it. Here's the reality. A lot of people sit there thinking they have to wait forever. Because police keep talking. Not always. Sometimes officers are hoping you will stay relaxed and keep chatting. The longer you chat, the more chances they get to build suspicion. Watch what happens when someone never asks this question. The officer goes back to the car. Another unit arrives. Someone starts asking about your phone. Then someone asks where the child's car seat is. Then someone asks who watched your child last week. Now the stop is no longer about the lane change or broken taillight. It is a full fishing trip, and you never even noticed when it changed. And remember one more thing. Police can order you out of the car during a lawful stop. That comes from Pennsylvania v. Mims, plain English. If they lawfully tell you to step out, do it. You can comply with that order and still refuse consent, limit your talking, and ask if you are free to leave once the traffic matter is done. Most people already clicked away. If you're still here, you're in the top group that actually wants to protect your rights. Drop a comment saying I'm still here and hit that like button, because this next tactic is the one people remember too late. The fourth tactic is what you say when the stop is no longer just tense. It is serious. Here's exactly what you say. I want a lawyer and I choose to remain silent. Word for word. Memorize that line. This line matters because a lot of people wait far too long. They keep thinking one more explanation will fix things. One more apology. One more guess. One more emotional story about being a good parent who just had a bad night that almost never helps once the stop has turned criminal. Bad way. Most drivers say I can explain why I forgot where my child was. Then they give police a statement that sounds worse every time it gets repeated. Good way. Smart drivers say I want a lawyer and I choose to remain silent. Then the free evidence stops coming from their own mouth. This is 100% legal. You do not need permission to ask for a lawyer. You do not need to wait until police are being nice enough for you. Once you believe the stop has turned into a real criminal matter, that line should already be in your head. Listen closely because this is critical. You must say it clearly. Not maybe I need a lawyer. Not should I have a lawyer? Not can I call my sister first? You say the exact line and then you stop talking. If you keep talking after asking for a lawyer, you start undoing the protection. Miranda v. Arizona is the big case here. Plain English. When police are questioning you in custody, you have the right to remain silent and ask for a lawyer. That does not mean every traffic stop begins with a Miranda warning. It does not. But once you are in custody or the situation turns into formal questioning, your words become even more dangerous. And in a title like this, that danger multiplies because alcohol wrecks judgment. You think you are clarifying, you are usually making things worse. You think honesty means blurting out every feeling. It does not. Honesty and smart silence can exist at the same time. Now let's tie the legal framework together in simple English. Berkemer v. McCarty tells you roadside statements matter, so your first line is to stop the free interview. Schneckloth v. Bustamonte tells you voluntary consent can open the door to a legal search, so your second line is to refuse clearly. Rodriguez v. United States tells you police cannot drag out a traffic stop longer than needed just to go fishing without more legal reason. So your third line is to ask if you are free to leave when the traffic part is complete. Miranda v. Arizona tells you that once you are in custody and being questioned, silence and counsel matter, so your fourth line is to ask for a lawyer and stop talking. Put those together and the pattern is simple. You comply with lawful orders, you protect child safety if there is a real emergency, then you stop helping build the case against yourself. Now picture a real scenario. You leave a restaurant or bar, you get pulled over. The officer smells alcohol. Your child is not in the car. During the stop, the officer asks where your child is, and because you are drunk and panicked, you start stumbling through 3 different answers. That is the wrong way. You say too much. You guess. You agree to a search because you feel guilty. You keep explaining after the stop shifts into investigation. By the end, you have handed police your statements, your consent, and your contradictions. Now here is the right way. If the officer asks where the child is and there is a real immediate safety issue you can help solve, you give the information needed to protect the child. After that, you stop the free interview. You say, "Officer, I will comply, but I do not wish to answer questions." If the officer asks to search your car, phone, or bag, you say, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." If the traffic business should be over, you ask, "Officer, am I free to leave once this traffic matter is complete?" If the stop becomes a real criminal case, you say, "I want a lawyer, and I choose to remain silent." That path is boring. Good. Boring is what protects you when emotion is trying to destroy you. Next week I'm breaking down what to say when police claim they smell alcohol or weed and try to turn that into a full search. Subscribe right now so you don't miss it, because that exact claim turns simple stops into major cases every single day. So let's lock this in. First, panic talking is poison, especially when alcohol is in the mix. Second, you can comply with lawful orders without giving a full roadside confession. Third, you never make a search easier just because you feel guilty or embarrassed. Fourth, when the stop turns criminal, you ask for a lawyer and stop talking. And finally, if a child is in real danger, safety comes first, but once that emergency is handled, your mouth can become your biggest enemy. Hit subscribe so you catch the next video before you need it in real life. Smash that like button if this just changed how you think about police stops, and drop a comment telling me which line you're going to memorize first. Stay safe out there.